Imagine you are standing on a hill in Italy. You have a small wooden box and a brass telegraph key. Your brother is standing on another hill, 2 miles away, completely out of sight. You press the key, click, 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 and suddenly, 2 miles away, a bell rings. There are no wires. There are no strings. There is nothing but empty air between you. In 1895, this looked like black magic. But for 20-year-old Guglielmo Marconi, it was the start of a multi-billion-dollar empire. Guglielmo Marconi was not a scientist with a PhD. Guglielmo Marconi was a self-taught tinkerer who saw the invisible world. Guglielmo Marconi found a way to turn the entire atmosphere into a giant spiderweb of messages. He didn't just invent the radio. He invented the wireless age. This is the story of how a young man convinced the world that wires were for the past and the air was for the future. He didn't just win the race for communication. He built a monopoly so powerful that even the sinking of the Titanic became part of his business plan. Marconi was born into a wealthy family, which gave him a big advantage. His mother was from the famous Jameson whiskey family, so he had the money to buy the best equipment. While other kids were playing, Marconi was in the attic, obsessed with Hertzian waves. Everyone told him it was impossible to send signals over long distances because the Earth is curved. They said the signal would just fly off into space. Marconi didn't care about the math. He only cared about the results. He kept making his antennas bigger and bigger. When the Italian government told him he was crazy, he didn't give up. He packed his boxes and moved to England, the richest country in the world. He knew that the biggest wealth secret was not just the invention itself, but who needed it the most. He realized that the kings of the ocean, the giant shipping companies, were blind once they left the shore. He was going to give them eyes in the dark. In 1901, Marconi decided to do the impossible. He wanted to send a signal across the Atlantic Ocean from England to Canada. This was a distance of 2,000 miles. To do this, he built a massive station with 20 giant wooden poles. On a freezing day in Newfoundland, Canada, Marconi held a telephone receiver to his ear. He was flying a giant kite in the wind to act as an antenna. Suddenly, he heard it. ... It was the letter S in Morse code, sent from across the ocean. The world was in shock. The cables under the ocean, which cost millions of dollars to lay, were suddenly obsolete. Marconi had turned the sky into a highway for information. But here is where Marconi showed his true business genius. He didn't just sell his radio machines to people. He used the service monopoly strategy. He told ship owners, "I won't sell you the machine. I will lease it to you. And I will provide my own Marconi operators to run it." This meant that every ship in the world was forced to use his employees and his equipment. He created a closed system. If a ship had a non-Marconi radio, his operators were told not to talk to them. He was building a wall around the air. He wanted to make sure that if you were at sea, the only way to talk to the world was to pay the Marconi company. This was a brutal but brilliant wealth secret. He wasn't just an inventor. He was the first information landlord of the world. In 1912, the unsinkable Titanic hit an iceberg. Because of Marconi's invention, a ship called the Carpathia heard the call and saved 700 lives. Without Marconi, every single person on that ship would have died in the freezing water. Marconi was hailed as a global hero. The newspapers said he was the man who saved the Titanic's survivors. Governments passed laws making it mandatory. Suddenly, thousands of ships had to sign contracts with the Marconi company. Marconi also did something very controversial. He made a secret deal with the survivors to sell their stories to the newspapers. He knew that in a crisis, information is more valuable than gold. The Titanic disaster, while a tragedy, made Marconi the most powerful man in communication. He had proved that his invisible wires were the difference between life and death. While Marconi was being celebrated as the father of radio, a dark cloud was forming over his head. That cloud was named Nikola Tesla. As we saw in the story of Edison, Tesla was a genius of electricity, and he claimed that Marconi had stolen the idea for radio from him. Tesla had filed patents for wireless transmission years before Marconi. In fact, Marconi's radio used 17 of Tesla's original patents. When Tesla saw Marconi getting all the fame and money, he famously said, "Marconi is a good fellow. Let him continue. He is using 17 of my patents." But as Marconi grew richer, Tesla's patience ran out. The patent war for the radio lasted for decades. Marconi had the money and the powerful friends, but Tesla had the original science. The U.S. Patent Office originally gave the credit to Tesla, then changed their mind and gave it to Marconi because he was more famous and successful. This was a classic wealth secret lesson. In the world of business, being first isn't always enough. You have to be the best at selling the idea. Marconi was a master salesman, while Tesla was a lonely scientist. It wasn't until 1943, 6 months after Tesla died and years after Marconi died, that the U.S. Supreme Court finally ruled that Tesla was the true inventor of the radio. Marconi had lived his whole life with a trophy that technically belonged to someone else. Marconi's company became so powerful that it was like the Google or Apple of the early 1900s. He built a wireless ring around the British Empire. He had stations in India, Australia, South Africa, and America. He was obsessed with control. He didn't just want to be an inventor. He wanted to be a world leader. He was made a marquis in Italy and joined the Italian Senate. He lived on a giant 700-ton luxury yacht called the Elettra, which he turned into a floating laboratory. On his yacht, he would sail across the Mediterranean, listening to signals from all over the world. He was the first person to experience a connected world. But this power also led him down a dark path. He became a close friend and supporter of the Italian dictator Benito Mussolini. Marconi believed that the radio should be used to unite people under one powerful leader. He used his invention to help spread propaganda. The man who had given the world a voice was now helping to control what that voice was allowed to say. He proved that once you own the wires of the air, you have the power to change how people think. Just like with Alexander Graham Bell, the world decided to pay tribute in the most fitting way possible. On the day of his funeral, every radio station in the world went silent for 2 minutes. For those 120 seconds, the air was empty. He had taken a world that was divided by oceans and mountains and stitched it together with invisible thread. Marconi's life teaches us that the greatest wealth is found in efficiency. He saw that cables were slow and expensive, so he used the air for free. He turned the service model into a multi-billion-dollar empire. Today, every time you use Wi-Fi, GPS, or your mobile phone, you are using the foundation that Marconi laid. He showed us that the world is not made of just dirt and water, but of invisible waves waiting to be captured. If you think it is amazing how a man captured the air to build a communication empire, wait until you see how the next inventor used the power of the atom to create a force that could either save the planet or destroy it in a single second. Click the next video to see the secret of the man who unlocked the ultimate energy.